Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Bianca Jagger is a Nicaraguan-born social and human rights advocate, former actress, and style icon, best known for her influential presence in the 1970s social scene and her marriage to Mick Jagger, the lead singer of the Rolling Stones. Beyond her glamorous public image, she has built a powerful legacy as a committed humanitarian and political activist. Early life and education. Bianca Jagger was born Bianca Pérez-Mora Macías on May 2, 1945, in Managua, Nicaragua. She grew up in a middle-class family and witnessed political unrest in her home country, experiences that would later influence her activism. After her parents' divorce, she studied in France under a scholarship at the Paris Institute of Political Studies, Sciences Po, where she developed a keen interest in social justice and international affairs. Rise to fame and marriage to Mick Jagger. Bianca met Mick Jagger in 1970, and the couple married in May 1971 in a lavish ceremony in Saint-Tropez, France. Their marriage thrust her into the global spotlight. The pair became one of the most photographed and talked about couples of the 1970s, representing a fusion of rock and roll and high fashion. Bianca's sophisticated and daring style made her an international fashion icon, famously wearing a white Yves Saint Laurent tuxedo to Studio 54 and becoming a muse to many designers. Studio 54 in the 1970s social scene. During the height of New York's Studio 54 era, Bianca Jagger was a central figure of the glamorous nightlife scene. She was known for her elegance and charisma, often photographed alongside celebrities such as Andy Warhol, Halston, and Liza Minnelli. One of the most iconic moments from the era was her riding a white horse into Studio 54 during her birthday celebration in 1977, a symbol of the extravagance of the decade. Shift to activism and humanitarian work. After her separation from Mick Jagger in 1978 and their eventual divorce in 1979, Bianca gradually turned her focus toward human rights and environmental activism. Witnessing violence and injustice in Nicaragua and other parts of the world reignited her political engagement. She has worked with organizations such as Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the United Nations, advocating for causes including women's rights, indigenous rights, climate justice, and opposition to the death penalty. In 2005, she founded the Bianca Jagger Human Rights Foundation, dedicated to promoting social justice, environmental protection, and accountability for human rights violations. Awards and recognition. Over the years, Bianca Jagger has received numerous awards for her humanitarian work, including the United Nations Earth Day International Award, 1994, the Right Livelihood Award, often referred to as the Alternative Nobel Prize, 2004, the World Achievement Award from the Women's World Awards, 2006. Legacy. Bianca Jagger's life is a testament to transformation, from international celebrity and fashion muse to respected activist and moral voice. She remains admired not only for her timeless style but also for her unwavering dedication to justice and human rights. Activism and global human rights work. Bianca Jagger's activism began in earnest in the late 1970s, driven by her personal experiences and growing awareness of global injustices. The 1979 Nicaraguan Revolution, which overthrew the Somoza dictatorship, deeply affected her. Her homeland's struggle for democracy became a cause close to her heart. She began using her fame and connections to raise awareness about political repression, war crimes, and environmental destruction worldwide. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, she emerged as a strong and credible voice in the international human rights community. She traveled extensively to witness and document abuses in war zones and developing nations. visiting El Salvador, Bosnia, Honduras, Rwanda, and Cambodia, among others. These journeys often brought her face to face with victims of violence, political prisoners, and displaced populations. She became a Council of Europe Goodwill Ambassador and served as a member of Amnesty International's Executive Directors Leadership Council, advocating for an end to torture, executions, and the persecution of dissidents. Bianca has also been a longtime opponent of the death penalty, campaigning for its abolition across the Americas and Europe. Environmental and climate advocacy. In addition to human rights, Bianca Jagger is a passionate environmentalist. She has spoken forcefully about climate change, deforestation, and the need for sustainable development. Her foundation, the Bianca Jagger Human Rights Foundation, BJHRF, has worked on projects linking human rights with environmental protection, arguing that ecological destruction directly undermines the rights of vulnerable communities. She has advocated for indigenous peoples' rights to their ancestral lands and criticized corporate exploitation of natural resources in Latin America and Africa. Bianca has spoken at the United Nations climate change conferences, COP, and other global forums, urging leaders to take meaningful action to combat global warming and protect future generations. Bianca Jagger Human Rights Foundation. Founded in 2005, the Bianca Jagger Human Rights Foundation, BJHRF, is based in London and operates internationally. Its mission is to promote and protect human rights, social and economic justice, and environmental protection. The foundation focuses on several key issues: ending violence against women and girls, opposing the death penalty, supporting climate and environmental justice, promoting corporate accountability for human rights abuses through the BJHRF. Bianca has worked alongside global organizations and legal experts to hold governments and corporations accountable for human rights violations. Public speaking and writing. Bianca Jagger is also a respected public speaker and writer, contributing to publications such as The Guardian, Huffington Post, and The Independent. Her speeches often combine personal experience, moral conviction, and deep knowledge of international law. She has addressed the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and various human rights tribunals, where she speaks about justice, environmental sustainability, and the ethical responsibilities of world leaders. Style, symbolism, and legacy in culture. Even as she transitioned from celebrity to activist, Bianca Jagger's sense of style remained an integral part of her identity. She became one of the first women to redefine glamour as a form of self-expression and empowerment. Her signature look, sharp tailoring, minimalist elegance, and bold femininity, continues to inspire designers like Yves Saint Laurent, Stella McCartney, and Tom Ford. She was often described as embodying the spirit of the 1970s jet set, glamorous yet intelligent, daring yet dignified. Over time, Bianca transformed that image into something deeper: the grace and gravitas of a woman who uses her fame not for vanity, but for virtue and visibility. Personal life. In later years, Bianca and Mick Jagger had one daughter, Jade Jagger, born in 1971, who became a jewelry designer and socialite. Although Bianca's marriage to Mick ended in divorce in 1979, she has often spoken respectfully about their time together, acknowledging that their lives diverged but both evolved meaningfully. Now in her late 70s, Bianca Jagger continues to be active in her humanitarian work. She remains based in London, where she continues to campaign, write, and speak publicly about pressing global issues. Conclusion. Bianca Jagger's life is a remarkable journey, from a young Nicaraguan woman seeking education in Europe, to an international fashion icon, to one of the most respected human rights advocates of her generation. Her transformation demonstrates how personal reinvention, guided by conscience and compassion, can turn fame into a force for change. Feminism and women's empowerment. Bianca Jagger has long been recognized as a feminist figure, both through her public persona and her activism. While she initially gained fame as the glamorous wife of a rock star, she refused to be defined by that role. After her divorce, she reinvented herself as a powerful advocate for women's rights, setting a precedent for how women in the public eye can reclaim their identity and voice. She has consistently spoken out against gender-based violence, sexual exploitation, and discrimination, emphasizing that women's rights are fundamental human rights. Bianca has worked with international organizations to combat rape as a weapon of war, to protect refugee women, and to support female political prisoners. In her public speeches, she often highlights the courage of women around the world, those who stand up against oppression, demand education, and risk their lives for justice. She has said, "True liberation for women can only exist when every woman has the right to live free from fear, free from violence, and with dignity." Notable speeches and advocacy highlights. Bianca Jagger's eloquence and conviction have made her a sought-after speaker on global platforms. Some of her most notable addresses include the United Nations General Assembly, New York, where she advocated for stronger international cooperation to address climate change and human rights abuses. World Economic Forum, Davos, where she emphasized corporate accountability and ethical leadership. Council of Europe, Strasbourg, in which she campaigned for the abolition of the death penalty and highlighted injustices within criminal justice systems. Oxford Union and London School of Economics, where she delivered lectures connecting environmental destruction to human suffering and poverty. Her speeches are known for blending moral clarity with factual rigor, often challenging world leaders to act not out of political convenience but out of conscience. Awards and honors. Over her decades of activism, Bianca Jagger has received numerous international honors recognizing her lifelong commitment to justice and humanitarianism. Right Livelihood Award, 2004, for her tireless work in defending human rights and the environment. United Nations Earth Day International Award, 1994, for outstanding contributions to environmental protection. World Achievement Award, 2006, presented by the Women's World Awards for her influence and leadership. World Citizenship Award, 2004, from the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. American Civil Liberties Union Award, for advocacy of civil and human rights. These honors reflect the breadth of her influence, spanning environmental justice, human rights, and gender equality. Influence on culture and the media. Beyond her direct activism, Bianca Jagger remains a symbol of cultural sophistication and moral courage. Fashion magazines and cultural historians continue to reference her as one of the defining icons of the 1970s. Not only for her beauty and style but also for her transformation into a figure of global conscience. Her ability to transcend celebrity culture and evolve into a respected activist has inspired later generations of public figures, such as Angelina Jolie and Emma Watson, to use fame as a platform for advocacy. Bianca helped pioneer that model, proving that glamour and gravitas could coexist. Photographers and designers have often cited her as a muse. Her minimalist yet commanding aesthetic, white suits, strong silhouettes, and understated elegance, came to represent an empowered femininity that rejected ornamentation in favor of strength and intellect. Personal philosophy. At the heart of Bianca Jagger's worldview is a deep belief in justice, compassion, and moral responsibility. Influenced by Christian ethics and secular humanism, she often speaks about the need for personal accountability in a world driven by greed and indifference. She has said, "We cannot wait for governments or institutions to act. Every one of us has a moral duty to stand up for justice, to defend human dignity, and to protect the earth we share." This philosophy underscores her decades of advocacy work and explains why she remains deeply respected in international circles long after her time in the celebrity spotlight. Legacy. Bianca Jagger's legacy is twofold. She is remembered as both a cultural icon of an era and a moral voice of conscience in the modern age. She turned a life once defined by privilege and fame into one defined by service, empathy, and justice. Her journey from a Nicaraguan girl studying in Paris to one of the most recognizable women of the 20th century, and ultimately to a defender of human rights, demonstrates her extraordinary resilience and purpose. Bianca Jagger stands today not just as a figure of beauty or style, but as a living testament to transformation, showing that compassion, courage, and conviction can truly change the world. Influence on modern activism. Bianca Jagger has become a role model for a new generation of celebrity activists who use their public influence to promote humanitarian causes. Long before social media activism became common, she demonstrated how fame could be channeled into meaningful change. Her approach was never superficial. She did not simply lend her name to causes but immersed herself in the work. Bianca visited conflict zones, met with victims, and spoke directly to political leaders and human rights organizations. Her credibility as an activist was earned through direct engagement, research, and fearless advocacy. In an age when celebrity activism is sometimes dismissed as performative, Bianca's example continues to stand out for its authenticity and persistence. Figures like Angelina Jolie, Amal Clooney, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Emma Watson have all followed similar paths, using their fame to influence global discourse, and many have cited Bianca's generation as the foundation for this form of public advocacy. She has also influenced the intersection of environmentalism and human rights, an area now central to global activism. Bianca was one of the first to articulate how climate change and ecological destruction are not just environmental problems, but humanitarian crises that threaten food security, displace populations, and endanger peace. Art, culture, and media representation. Over the decades, Bianca Jagger's life and image have inspired artists, filmmakers, and writers. She was often photographed by legendary figures like Helmut Newton, Richard Avedon, and Andy Warhol, who admired her striking beauty and magnetic presence. She became a symbol of empowered femininity, a woman who could command attention not through scandal or extravagance, but through intellect, confidence, and independence. Her image remains one of the most iconic of the 1970s, often used to represent the glamour and complexity of that era. Fashion houses such as Yves Saint Laurent, Halston, and Dior considered her both muse and collaborator. Even today, designers and stylists reference her minimalist elegance, tailored suits, monochrome outfits, and the balance between strength and softness as timeless hallmarks of sophisticated style. In 2022, several exhibitions and retrospectives revisited her impact, including features in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and The Guardian, which celebrated her evolution from fashion icon to global humanitarian. Bianca Jagger's relationship with Nicaragua and Latin America. Although she has lived much of her life in Europe, Bianca Jagger has maintained a deep emotional and political connection to Nicaragua and the broader Latin American region. She has consistently spoken against corruption, dictatorship, and human rights abuses throughout Central America. She condemned the Somoza dictatorship that ruled Nicaragua during her youth, but she has also been critical of later authoritarian tendencies under Daniel Ortega, calling out political repression, censorship, and violence against protesters. Her stance has often placed her at odds with the Nicaraguan government, yet she continues to advocate for the country's people and democratic principles. Bianca has also supported indigenous and environmental movements in Brazil, Ecuador, and Colombia, where she has campaigned to protect the Amazon rainforest and the rights of its native communities. Her work highlights how Latin America's ecological and social issues are interconnected and global in consequence. Publications and thought leadership over the years. Bianca Jagger has contributed essays and opinion pieces to major outlets including The Guardian, HuffPost, and The Independent, where she addresses global issues such as climate policy, war crimes, and the moral responsibility of corporations. In these writings, she emphasizes the need for systemic change rather than temporary relief, calling for a rethinking of how governments and institutions view development and progress. Her intellectual engagement has established her not only as an activist but also as a moral philosopher and policy thinker. Many of her articles and interviews echo a consistent theme: that human dignity must remain at the center of all progress, whether political, economic, or environmental. Enduring symbolism and cultural relevance even in her later years. Bianca Jagger continues to appear at international events, from human rights summits to fashion galas, always embodying a blend of grace and purpose. She has maintained her signature look, tailored suits, refined silhouettes, and natural beauty, reflecting a personal philosophy of elegance through integrity. To this day, Bianca represents a rare balance between style and substance. While her presence in 1970s pop culture might have initially been about glamour, her legacy has evolved into something far more meaningful, a symbol of moral beauty, where inner conviction enhances outward grace. She remains one of the few public figures who have successfully bridged the worlds of celebrity, activism, and intellectual discourse, proving that compassion and courage can transcend the trappings of fame. Timeline of key moments in Bianca Jagger's life: 1945 – born Bianca Pérez-Mora Macías in Managua, Nicaragua. 1960s – moves to France to study political science at Sciences Po, Paris. 1970 – meets Mick Jagger. 1971 – marries Mick Jagger in Saint-Tropez. Gives birth to daughter Jade Jagger. 1970s – becomes a fashion icon and fixture of New York's Studio 54 scene. 1979 – divorces Mick Jagger, begins focusing on global activism. 1980s to 1990s – works with Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the United Nations. 1994 – receives the United Nations Earth Day International Award. 2004 – wins the Right Livelihood Award, Alternative Nobel Prize. 2005 – founds the Bianca Jagger Human Rights Foundation. 2010s to 2020s – continues global advocacy on climate, women's rights, and democracy. Conclusion: Bianca Jagger's story is one of reinvention, resilience, and moral awakening. Her evolution from a celebrated figure of the 1970s to one of the most respected activists of her generation underscores the power of transformation. She has redefined what it means to live a meaningful life, showing that beauty, intelligence, and empathy can coexist, and that privilege can be a tool for progress when guided by conscience. Bianca Jagger remains, above all, a symbol of hope and humanity. A woman who has turned fame into a force for good, and whose voice continues to inspire generations to fight for justice, dignity, and a better world. Major humanitarian campaigns and field missions throughout her decades-long career as an activist, Bianca Jagger has undertaken numerous humanitarian missions across the globe, often traveling to dangerous and war-torn regions to witness and report human rights abuses firsthand. Her approach has always been deeply personal. She believes that one must see and listen to victims directly to truly advocate for them. Below are some of her most significant campaigns and missions. Central America. Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Honduras in the 1980s, Bianca Jagger became deeply involved in the Central American human rights crisis, particularly as civil wars and political violence swept through the region. In Nicaragua, she spoke out against both the Somoza dictatorship and later human rights violations under the Sandinista government. She has consistently criticized authoritarianism and political repression, regardless of ideology. In El Salvador, she documented atrocities committed during the brutal civil war, including the El Mozote massacre, where hundreds of civilians were killed by government forces. Her testimony and advocacy helped bring international attention to the suffering of civilians caught between warring factions. In Honduras, she investigated reports of human rights abuses by the military and death squads, working with Amnesty International to urge accountability and transparency. These early missions established Bianca as a serious human rights investigator, not merely a celebrity advocate. She risked her safety by visiting dangerous zones and challenging governments directly. Bosnia and the Balkans, 1990s, during the Bosnian War, 1992 to 1995, Bianca Jagger traveled to the former Yugoslavia to investigate war crimes, genocide, and the systematic use of rape as a weapon of war. She visited refugee camps and mass grave sites, meeting survivors of ethnic cleansing. She campaigned tirelessly for the establishment of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, ICTY, to prosecute war criminals. Bianca gave powerful speeches at the United Nations, urging the world to intervene to stop the slaughter of civilians. Her efforts contributed to broader awareness of the atrocities in Bosnia and helped maintain international pressure on leaders to seek justice. Rwanda and Africa, 1994 to 2000s. Following the Rwandan genocide in 1994, Bianca Jagger visited the region to support survivors and advocate for humanitarian aid. She condemned the international community's failure to act to prevent the mass killing of nearly 1 million people. In later years, she continued to campaign across sub-Saharan Africa on issues such as ending the use of child soldiers, promoting women's rights and education, advocating against mining-related environmental destruction and displacement of indigenous communities. She was particularly outspoken about corporate exploitation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where mining for precious minerals has fueled violence and human rights violations. Indigenous rights and the Amazon rainforest in the 2000s and 2010s. Bianca Jagger increasingly focused on environmental and indigenous rights, especially in South America. She supported the Yanomami people of Brazil, who faced violence and disease due to illegal mining and deforestation. In Ecuador, she campaigned alongside indigenous leaders against oil companies accused of polluting the Amazon and destroying native lands. Her foundation partnered with global NGOs to demand corporate accountability for environmental disasters affecting marginalized communities. She has described the destruction of the Amazon as a moral and ecological catastrophe, and has spoken at international conferences about the link between environmental protection and human survival. Abolition of the death penalty. One of Bianca Jagger's most enduring campaigns has been her opposition to the death penalty. She has served on the Advisory Council of the Coalition for the International Criminal Court, CICC, and Amnesty International's leadership boards, advocating for global abolition. Bianca visited death row prisons in the United States, including in Texas and Louisiana, speaking with inmates and families of the condemned. She often highlights cases of wrongful conviction and systemic bias, arguing that capital punishment perpetuates inequality and injustice. In her speeches, she calls the death penalty a violation of the most fundamental human right, the right to life. women's rights and anti-violence campaigns. Bianca Jagger has been a global voice for ending violence against women and promoting gender equality. She participated in international campaigns to stop female genital mutilation, FGM, and sexual violence in conflict zones. She has advocated for legal protections for survivors of domestic abuse and equal representation of women in politics and peace negotiations. Bianca's foundation has worked with groups such as UN Women and Equality Now, emphasizing that women's empowerment is essential for peace and development. Her work often bridges different issues, gender, environment, and poverty, showing how all forms of injustice are interconnected. Influence in international policy and institutions. Bianca Jagger's advocacy has not been limited to awareness raising. She has actively influenced international policy. As a Council of Europe Goodwill Ambassador, she helped shape resolutions on human rights and environmental protection. She has given evidence before the U.S. Congress and European Parliament, particularly on the subjects of capital punishment, corporate responsibility, and climate justice. Her foundation collaborates with UNESCO, UN Environment Programme, UNEP, and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR. Her moral authority and ability to bridge the worlds of art, politics, and activism have made her one of the most respected independent voices in global advocacy, continuing relevance and modern engagements even in her later years. Bianca Jagger remains active in public life. She frequently attends international summits, academic conferences, and human rights ceremonies. She continues to write essays and open letters urging governments to take stronger action on climate change, war crimes, and political corruption. During recent crises in Venezuela and Nicaragua, she has spoken passionately in defense of democracy, free speech, and non-violence. She also participates in online forums and interviews, using digital media to reach younger audiences. Her presence remains dignified and forceful, proof that her dedication to justice has never waned. A lasting legacy. Bianca Jagger's life embodies the idea that compassion can evolve into activism, and that privilege can be transformed into purpose. She has moved from being a symbol of 1970s glamour to a voice of conscience in the 21st century. Her enduring influence lies not only in her accomplishments but also in her example, the ability to change one's life direction with integrity and conviction. Bianca continues to inspire activists, artists, and thinkers worldwide to use their platforms to defend truth, dignity, and justice. Speeches, writings, and core philosophy. Over the decades, Bianca Jagger has not only participated in humanitarian missions but also articulated a clear and consistent moral philosophy through her public speeches, essays, and interviews. Her writings reflect a fusion of ethical conviction, human compassion, and intellectual clarity, bridging the worlds of activism, spirituality, and policy. She has written and spoken extensively about the interconnectedness of global problems, arguing that war, poverty, inequality, and environmental destruction are symptoms of the same moral crisis: humanity's loss of empathy and respect for life. 1. Defending the sanctity of life. One of Bianca Jagger's central messages has always been the inviolability of human life. Whether speaking against capital punishment, war, or environmental degradation, she roots her arguments in moral and spiritual principles. The right to life is the most fundamental of all human rights. No government, no individual, has the moral authority to take it away. She has consistently argued that societies cannot call themselves civilized while maintaining systems of state-sanctioned killing or tolerating mass human suffering. Her opposition to the death penalty is not only political but deeply ethical and philosophical.
bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.